Watch Who?
Hello.
And welcome to Two Watch Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Mark.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm a Doctor Who fan.
And I'm new to watching Who.
Watching for the very first time.
Very first time.
And here we are. It is season 18, the first story of the 80s.
No, there's an 80s song, isn't there? I made love to you if you were born in the 80s. The 80s. Yeah? Yeah?
Yes, yeah. That is. Well,
you looked at me like I'd lost the plot, and I was like, this is a thing. And I was doubting myself, but in my heart, I knew what I was doing.
Well, you just found us, everybody. We're playing Zero Gravity Squash in the Leisure Hive. We're just floating around here. Set, match. Catch it over there. We're floating around. What do you say in squash? I was like, pooh. That was me hitting the ball.
4 is like, I don't think that's tennis.
Is that golf?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're floating around. It's very difficult to
What's the one when you're chopping a tree down, other than timber?
I don't know, just timber, I suppose. Anyway. There we go. To you.
Ooh.
Okay. Well, I'll switch the gravity thing off because we can't record and float around at the same time.
It's too much.
It is, yeah. Well, very exciting, the Leisure Hive, because we have a bit of a change of tone for this season.
Yeah.
It's mixing up. We were getting a little bit tired of stuff towards the last couple of seasons, towards the end of the 70s, but we've got new music, new titles, we've got a new producer, we've got a new logo, we've got a new script editor, we've got a new... Oh, I don't know what my writing says there. Oh, no, I don't know. There's something else new, and I can't remember. It begins with C. It begins with C. Oh, I've written costume twice. It's fine. So they're all the new things that we've got. So complete change behind the scenes.
I didn't realise there was that much change.
Yeah, loads of stuff. So no Douglas Adams anymore. Actually, before we start with the Leisure Hive, we haven't recorded for a little while. We should just say hello to everybody and hello to each other. What's new? Before we start.
Yeah.
Well, the world is... turning again. Neighbours have started filming again. I thought I might just mention that. So
yeah,
we're all back on track.
Yeah.
Have you been watching anything else recently?
Oh, I'm watching Ted Lasso at the minute. Any Ted Lasso fans out there, you'll be on that journey with me through season 3. So that's a few things, just like odd things that pop up. And what else was it? Oh, and South Park, because that's just finished that season. So they only do like 6 episodes in a season now.
Right. No, I've not seen any of those things that you've talked about. So
no. That's my mum. Actually, I will mention this because I am going to start watching it when I finish Community. And I've mentioned this before. Astrid in Paris.
Oh, I think you have mentioned that.
So it's a French crime thing.
Yes, you have, yeah.
And season 2 is now on TV. So you can watch season 2 now. I think it's either on ITV or Channel 4. I think it's on Channel 4. So Astrid in Paris fans, get on that. Season 2 is out now. I'm going to start, once I finish this from the Community, I'm going to start watching Astrid in Paris.
I want to watch some Agatha Christie stories because I read a detective novel recently and it wasn't Agatha Christie, but it was very Agatha Christie-y, people in a house, someone gets murdered.
What was it?
Oh, it was called The Red House Mystery.
Oh, you told me about this. Yeah.
It was really good. It was a really good twist. It was like written in like the 20s. And
You've not seen And Then There Were None, have you?
I've not seen it. No, I've read that one.
You need to watch it.
Yes.
I have it on DVD.
I know. I need to see that because I really enjoyed the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. But I thought I would try and watch Agatha Christie obviously wrote loads of different books, as we know. I thought I might try and watch them in order. So her first novel is a Poirot.
Well, I was just going to say, oh my gosh, let's do some Poirot.
Yeah. Well, the
They're
first
all on
one.
BritBox. They're all on BritBox.
Yeah, I got some on DVD as well. So the first one, I can't remember what it's called. It's not the first one that they made, but it's like
There's
in
like
the
20
series.
seasons of it. There's so much Poirot. For me, David Suchet is Poirot. And
Yeah, he is. He's the main one. Yeah.
I mean, like, he studied that character for so long. He was that character.
He's like the Tom Baker of Poirot's.
Yeah. I mean, like, sort of like, if you're a Doctor Who, yeah, sure. He read loads of the books and wrote like a list of everything that made Poirot, and he read that before scenes. He like studied what it was to be that character, and that was the essence of everything about it. And yeah, and throughout, I mean, to have kept that character going for like that long.
Okay. Well, there we go.
There we go. There's a TV and life update from us.
Well, let's start the Leisure Hive, because everybody wants to know what we think. I want to know what you think of this.
Tonight sees the start of a new adventure for Doctor Who. Tom Baker returns as the intrepid time explorer whose travels take him to the Leisure Hive, where the science of tachyonics is spectacularly demonstrated.
It's got to be unreal transfer.
Why's it got to be?
Because that's the only way to manipulate solid objects.
What if I told you this part of the galaxy doesn't discover unreal transfer until 2386?
Then how's it done?
I don't know.
Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is under control. Or nearly everything.
But let's just go back and just talk about that tone of everything first. So what are you thinking of? New titles, new music, all of that?
It was a bit of a surprise, actually. So I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, but we are in the 80s.
Well, it was more the new producer coming in saying, I want to show that I am the new person. I want to make a mark on this.
That I didn't realise that. So I didn't because actually the story in a lot of that felt very standard.
I felt it was completely different. I felt everything had changed. Even the way that it's filmed is completely different to me.
Really?
I feel. Yeah. And like, this is a different director. This is a new director that actually wasn't asked back again because he overstretched everything and they went over time. The set, like, even the lighting, okay, it is quite brightly lit, but things like the angles, it was almost like it was shot more like modern day single camera rather than, you know, they're in a studio and it cuts like sort of game show style. There was different angles. There was close-ups. He was shooting down from above. You saw in the corridors like a ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
And before, you wouldn't have that because you just have the studio light. He'd actually put a ceiling in the corridors. You know, stuff like that. There was all different things like that.
Maybe it's because also when we've had location shots, so we've had things that have been different. So you're right. And maybe as I see it go on, for me, this initial one, the biggest shock was the opening credits and the sound being different. But in other ways, I was like, it's the same Doctor, it's the same companion.
Yeah, but he's in a completely different costume for once. It's a completely new costume.
Yes, I noticed it more when he was older than when he was young.
He's in a completely whole new costume for this season from the beginning.
I noticed his hat. He had his hat, and he always has a hat.
It's a completely different colour. It's completely different.
Really?
I knew you would notice that. I knew it.
No. I struggled a little bit to begin with, but I usually do, so I wasn't put off by that. But the end of the second one, going into the third, I was like, all right, like, good, like, I'm invested. And then the third one was really good. And I was like, I'm ready for the fourth. Maybe the pace was a bit different, but then actually I think back to Douglas Adams and like, there was some good pace and humour within that. And yeah, I don't know. It felt different because of the opening and all that felt so different. But the story and everything else at this point to me didn't feel
That's funny because I always thought of this one. I never really liked this one that much. I did always think it was a bit boring until I've watched it this time and I really concentrated on it because I never really understood the story that much. And I really got into the story this time. And maybe it's because I know a bit more about the behind the scenes stuff that I've noticed it. But this new script editor that's coming in, is more about the science stuff. I felt like it was a bit more for an older audience than it was before, because like the science, they're going on about tachyons and it's based on like real stuff. And I felt like there was a more of a scientific story going on. If you compare it to like Nightmare of Eden with all the, Maggie screaming and stuff, it wasn't really anything like that. It felt like it was more, not adult, but for a more teenage audience, an older audience.
I didn't really understand what they were trying to get at with the science. And I had a rough idea of what they were trying to do. I could sort of work out. If I removed some of the language, I could understand roughly what they were doing. Do you know what I mean? But there was a lot of language, and sometimes I can get a bit bogged down in like, there's a lot of words that are they just words? Do you know what I mean? That's really interesting though that you said that is actual stuff, because I literally wouldn't have had any idea other than, like it was just science words and they're just using things and saying things, and then but
I suppose they have. So are they saying that? I suppose even in like the Third Doctor's time, they were using like concepts and then just adding, that sci-fi element to them and stuff. They were trying to base it in real worldish stuff if possible. I just feel like there's more of an emphasis this time around.
It usually takes me personally a little bit to start to really notice it, because I mean, even when you get a new companion, you don't really notice the impacts of a new companion. Sometimes the script's been for an old companion. Like, it takes 2 or 3 for it to feel the change. So maybe it'll be the same this time. But I agree with the angles. But then we've had so many, I'm talking more last season, so many changes with that anyway, that it didn't even feel that different.
Oh my God. Because even like Tom Baker looks older, and he...
Well, he is
I can't
older.
believe... Yeah, but he looks so much older in this.
I mean, they make him look older as well.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that older. I'm just talking about normal.
I didn't think he did.
Okay.
I didn't think he looked that different. Other than when he looked older, and he really looked older. And I thought that makeup was amazing. To the point, I was like, is that even him? It was only when he was talking, I was like, they're not lip syncing. It's not like in the old days where we had like old Doctor and second, or Doctor and like second Doctor dummy or whatever. Those days have gone. That is actual makeup, and he actually looked. That is amazing. I didn't think he looked like he is older. He's been what, 7 years in this now? Like it's 7 years. Of course he can look. It's been nearly a decade since he started the role.
So we start off in Brighton.
Yeah.
Which is nice, on the beach. Okay, and there's 2 ways you can sort of take this new director. It's that really long pan going right, and it goes on and on of all the beach huts for ages and ages and ages. In my mind, I'm like, okay, brand new season, you want to get everybody to watch, and then you just put on this really long, boring thing that's going to just make people switch off. Or are you thinking, wow, this is like he's doing something a bit arty, something a bit different, this is really interesting. I mean, I always thought it was the first one. It was just boring. But I don't know. I am appreciating it a bit more this time around. But what do you think of that really long opening scene?
But again, it reminded me of what we've just had in the previous season, which was Cambridge.
Well, I know. But you didn't have like a whole minute and a half of just nothing.
But you had a lot of shots of Cambridge. So I just took it as like, they're setting in the scene, like it's the start of a new season, and he's just setting in that they are on a beach, and it's quite obviously Earth, because there's Brighton Pier, and here's all of these things that like you can see along the beach. I didn't see it as like some arty thing. I saw it as like he's definitely showing that this is Earth, and this is somewhere that you will know and recognize, and like showing those sights and scenes. The other part of me was like, I wonder whether to film on Brighton Beach, they had to like tick some things to be shown.
Well, you get everything
like
there.
a license of like you have to show, if you're going to be on the beach, you have to show the pier, and you have to show these. I don't know.
Well, there's still deck chairs in that spot. I found that spot when I was there at the weekend, because you can match it up with where the pier is and everything, and there's still deck chairs along that bit. It's hardly changed all that time.
But that's what I mean. I think it's so iconic as a thing. I think he's trying to show. Because quite often they'll show a place and it's trying to pretend to be an alien planet that happens to have the same vegetation as Earth, you know? He's really trying to show they are on Earth and we are on Brighton, and it gives you enough time to really take it in. And initially as well, when I saw it, because it pans out onto different things, and I was like, where is that? Which pier is that? And I was thinking, I was going to say Aberystwyth, are they in Blackpool? Like, I was trying to think, and then I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Brighton. And then when the dialogue starts, I was like, yeah, it's Brighton. So I quite enjoyed that. I enjoyed like trying to work out, where are they? Because it was working it out for so long. I was trying to work out the different piers, the different views, and also in the background, the pier's being done up.
I do appreciate it now. I don't think I ever have before. And then you've got the Doctor in a completely new costume, which let's just not talk about that because you can look out for that next time. And you've got Romana is obviously back, and K9.
Oh, poor. Let's just discuss that poor beach scene.
Well, can I just say,
K9.
can we just say it's old K9's voice is back?
Yes, you did message me that.
So that's good, although he's not really in this story.
He's not in it at all. Other
Well,
than, struggling along the beach.
Well, the story goes the new producer isn't really fond of K9, but they'd spent a lot of money redoing him up so he can go over radio control over different terrains, and then when they got him to the beach, it didn't work. So he's just, you can see the string pulling him along when he's going along with. So they quickly write him out. I mean, it is a bit silly that K9 will go straight into the sea, but I love that dramatic that Romana does.
That whole scene was ridiculous. Also, I was like, so the first thing, actually, that is a point. I did notice then that the Doctor was wearing something different, but I just presumed it's because he was on the beach. I didn't clock it in any of ways he's in a completely different outfit throughout. I just presumed he was in his beach holiday attire because he's all covered up, isn't he?
It's a completely different colour.
Yeah, he's got something over his face, and I just presumed that he was in some sort of weird beach attire because it doesn't even look warm. It looks pretty cold on that beach. Romana's in that terrible bathing suit that must be freezing.
Well, it's as if she was expecting Victorian times, and then she's just in this and she spends the whole story in her swimsuit thing.
Honestly, the only saving grace for her is that at least she's in a studio for the rest of it, because every time I looked at her, I was like, she must be freezing. And she looks cold. It looks like she's just trying to say a dialogue and not look cold. I'm cold watching her. I needed to put a jumper on watching her.
But it adds to the sort of humour of that opening, because there's nobody else in sight at all. It's not like it's a sunny day on the beach. It is cold and nobody else is out apart from them.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely been filmed in September, October.
And I don't know if you noticed, there is a mention, finally, after a season, they talk about the randomizer. It's so funny now. Just suddenly now they talk about the randomizer, a season too late.
Yeah. As if, the last season didn't occur. It's oh, yeah, that thing that's protecting us from the Daleks. What the fuck are you on about?
The Black Guardian, yeah. The Black Guardian.
Oh, the Black Guardian. That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it's nice to have that bit there, because then we go off to our alien planet afterwards. So it's nice that it starts off in the real world for an opening of the season. And then we go. I don't really like that effect that when they're talking, it zooms out when we go off to the planet. That's a bit of an odd. I think they're trying to just show off a lot of computer effects in this.
I think that it's very 80s. But again, that to me just fit in with the opening credits. I didn't feel it was different in they're trying something different. It just felt the opening felt so different. This just felt like an element of that because it's so early on. I didn't feel it was that different in the scheme.
And then we go to the Leisure Hive, which is essentially Centre Parcs in space, I've put. Yeah. It's basically what it is.
Well, it's weird. I think I expected something more.
Well, last time you were expecting worker bees as the Leisure Hive. You said your prediction.
Actually, the closest we got was the top of their hats. It does look a little bit like honeycomby.
The little bee, the things that drop off their hats. Do you remember that game? Oh, I got this for Christmas one year. I begged for it and I hardly ever played it. You remember Busy Bumblebees, where you had to wear the thing on you had a headband on with a bee sticking out, and it had a magnet, and then you had a flower and it had little magnets, and it was that game where, a bit is it Hungry Hippos or something? Wait, and then you had to put your head down and collect.
Ho ho ho, say hey hey, Buzzy, buzzy bumblebees.
Busy Buzzy Bumbles from Waddington.
Busy, buzzy
You can
bumblebees.
still buy it, I think.
Oh, can you? Yes.
Pollen picking, hive heaving, bee buzzing fun.
Yeah, that's it. It's essentially, they could just repackage that, stick the Doctor Who logo and say the Leisure Hive, the board game. There you
I
go.
sort of do remember this, yeah.
Yeah,
Get
Busy
some
Bumblebees.
old versions of it.
It is a holiday park, but you don't really see much of it. It's just like one, because the whole planet, there's been a war, and this is their surviving race, the Argolans. Yeah, I never got into all of that backstory and everything, but I really listened this time, and I found out really interesting that it was just there's only a few of them, and their little balls pop off as they die. And you've got Pangol is the son. That's the annoying guy. Yeah,
The dad dies first.
Yes.
I can't remember his name, but then we're left with Mena.
Mena, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm all team Mena. Love Mena.
She was really good. Yeah, the acting is really good in this.
The acting's good throughout because he's really annoying and he lived to that throughout.
And usually when they're all in a silly wig and clothes and everything, you think, oh. But actually, you kind of forget that after a while and just see them as their
I thought the makeup
characters.
was really good, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and the set feels very real and solid, like corrugated metal. Like
It felt like it had space as well.
yeah, I think so. I think that was all these different camera angles that they're trying out. There was lots of high angles, which we don't normally have, and then say like lots of these low ones and close-ups and different things. And I think behind the scenes they had a lot of trouble and overran, and this director was never asked back. But he really did try to do something different, and it does show. And you follow the story. So the idea is, if I understand this right, you've got this machine, which is, I mean, they're playing squash and everything and all that kind of stuff in Centre Parcs. It's got everything else. I'm sure it's got a swimming pool with a tide machine and everything.
This is what I couldn't understand. What was so special about going to them, other than you could go in a machine and play squash in zero gravity?
Well, I think maybe because it would concentrate on this one machine, but I think they must have just had loads of them. It was like virtual reality, basically. I think you go in and you play. You go in this virtual reality space and play all these different things. I think that's what the Leisure Hive is. I think, but they started talking about this tachyon thing, and this is where it gets a bit where it doesn't really matter if you understand it or not, but it is interesting if you do. So tachyon, it's a real thing. I'm just looking on Wiki now. And the idea is, because Pangol does an example of it to everybody, doesn't he? Where he goes in and then his arms go flying off and stuff. And he's like, this is the tachyon version of me. And you can like have fun and manipulate this double of you. So a tachyon is a hypothetical particle that always travels faster than light. But because a tachyon would always travel faster than light, it would not be possible to see it approaching. So an observer would be able to see two images of it appearing and departing in opposite directions. So if you take that, what I've just said on Wikipedia, and apply it to the Leisure Hive, that's why you get a double. So he's inside the machine, it does this tachyon version of yourself, and then his arms go flying and stuff. But when that guy at the end of the episode, or towards the end of the episode, goes in and dies, something's gone wrong and it's taken apart his real version rather than his tachyon version, I think. And that's horrible, actually, considering the implication that his arms and his head's just been ripped off. And you see him in pain. This shows the tone of it as well, because the last couple of seasons, we have not had that. We have not had...
You don't see anything. I mean,
don't.
other than you
Well, you
hear
see
it.
him.
It's one of those things, if you think about it, you're like, oh, because you see it happen initially, and you're like, oh, it's all fine. Then it happens, and then you're told, oh, no, he's dead. It's bad. But, yeah, it's done in, like, a very BBC, still a kids program way, rather than...
Oh, I don't know. I just the horror on his face I thought was bad. Even the Doctor at the end of part 1, when he goes in and you see his face, like...
Oh, yeah. But I didn't... I still feel it's very TV show, kids TV show, rather than over 18s adult murder.
Oh no, it's not a murder, but
Yeah. But they call it a murder throughout. He has been murdered.
Yeah, and I think is it that the Famasi?
It's been tampered with.
So that's the secret Famasi guy in the suit that's doing that. I think. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what comes out at the end. Yeah.
So I was getting into the whole tachyonic bit and being like, oh, okay, I understand this now. So I did really enjoy part 1, which I really didn't think I would, because I remember it mainly from that. He goes in the machine, and I think they're just showing off these new. I think it was a new thing that the BBC had got, this machine that could do stuff like that. So they're like, right, we're going to show it off. There is a really annoying scene where it's supposed to be the ship landing, and it's just like this black circle thing, and it goes on for ages and ages and ages. It looks like a microphone, and it's supposed to be the ship landing.
Yeah.
And that was a bit like that opening scene. It just was like this black model thing, and it's not really clear what it is. It's not like a model of a ship. It's just like a light, and it goes on and on. I just think, you could just speed it up a little bit there. That was the only thing.
Actually, yeah.
The idea is that they want to make people younger because there's the scientist guy, isn't there, that's saying, right, we can make people younger, and this is what we're going to do with the tachyonics machine, so that it sows that seed. But then you find out that the scientist has been faking it, and I thought the scientist was going to be bad, but he wasn't actually. He was all right.
See, throughout, I knew that kid was going to be bad.
Well, he was not bothered.
He's not. Well, he is, but he's not. He is like the essence of privilege. Like, he's been brought up with privilege, and he doesn't understand the rules and boundaries of life. He insists that those people, like the thingies, whatever they are, stay and watch, even though they're like, well, no, we're like diplomatically, you can't force us to do stuff. And Mena understands this because she's lived and she has life. And I roared, and I'm jumping about a bit here, but I roared when she said, like, well, I'll raise him a bit. I think I'll raise him a bit better this time or something. I roared at that. I just found it really funny of like, okay, this time I'm going to actually teach him how manners rather than let him live a life of luxury and not understanding how actual things work in the world.
But he is trying to save his race because there's only a few of them left.
But
and he's
he
trying
goes
to create
a very arrogant way about it, and he goes from a place of privilege about it.
Because I was wondering, because when Mena starts to drop her balls and stuff and just like gets ill, he's not bothered. He's like not caring at all. And I was like, hang on, that's supposed to be your mother. Why aren't you caring? And then you find out that he's a child of the machine, so it's not really. That explains it all. Because he's just completely cold-hearted throughout. And I was like, okay, that's a bit.
But equally, you'd have thought, I get it, he's a child of the machine, but he's born of the machine, but he's been raised by those people. I mean, okay, we're going to go down a really deep hole here, but like adoption, okay? Born by someone else, and yet he's been raised by these people. Surely you'd think he'd have some sort of sense of like, he knows his duty in the end, because he's obviously been told that. He's like, well, you will be in charge one day, and you were born of this. And this has all been explained to him. Like, we aren't saying this now because of X, Y, Z. But like, he just chooses to, I don't know. I just think like the right idea was like, let him be a baby again, and she'll teach him some proper manners and some like how the world works, and he can grow up understanding and learning it properly rather than just being like, well, this is what we do and we'll take over. And also I think it's the fact that his motives are wrong, because she says like these things are here to teach us humanity, and she talks about like the reason they still have the thing there is to teach us about death, and that we have an end and stuff like that. And he's like, no. But I don't know.
Like, it's very convenient they've got that helmet there, because
that was on my helmet.
It's the symbol of all of that, like you've said. But also, when everyone gets duplicated, they don't have to show everyone's faces, and it's a very cheap production thing that you can do. Yeah, with the Formasi as well, because you sort of see this thing outside coming. You don't see them for a long time.
They remind me of Christmas film. And
The Grinch.
The Grinch. And what are the people in the town called?
I like that you don't really see them, and there's another murder as well, and the Doctor gets blamed for that.
They look like Who's, like from Whoville. Who's, I don't know, but it's a hat, and like Cindy Lou had like that sort of pointy hair and stuff, and that's what their hair's like.
I was trying to work out the Argolians run Centre Parcs, but then it's also the same technology that they want to save their place. It's not like they've got it's not like a science building. It is a public amusement park that they are using the technology for to save their race.
It's kind of like Disneyland, and Disneyland also makes movies to
develop stuff.
Itself.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Sure.
But it's also a park.
Yeah. Oh my god, Pangle is totally like that. Isn't what was it? Who runs Disney now? Isn't he supposed to be a bad guy?
Oh no, the old guys come back.
Is that Roy Disney? Is he the bad guy?
None of the Disneys are there now.
I think there's like great. Yeah, there's like a
no
descendant
Disney
of
from Disney anymore. There was a guy for like 10 years that was like chief exec of Disney. And then this new guy's been in the last few years. And bless him, that's also to do with COVID. But no one likes it. And there's all been these contract disputes. And then he suddenly went recently. And now the old guy that had retired is now back at Disney.
So is that like the Mena of Disney is back?
Yeah.
Mena
and everyone
Disney.
likes this other guy.
Okay.
Who like retired. He brought in like a lot of more in the last 15 years, things that have changed at Disney. He was part, and like the growth of Disney, that was him.
Okay, there we go. That's the Leisure Hive, everyone. The history of Disney and the Leisure Hive.
Can't remember his name.
But so Romana helps out the scientist with his time experiments thing. So he actually does start to work because he's been faking it. How are you feeling about Romana? Because obviously she's back now. You weren't sure if she's going to be back or not.
She didn't do much really in this, did she?
Well, she did a lot of science with the scientist.
She did, but she was more around and helping. I don't know. I kind of like, other than the initial start with the whole K9 on the beach thing, K9! There were moments where I kind of forgot she was there.
Do you know what? I completely forgot about K9. I did not miss K9.
Yeah, until at the end when they mentioned K9, I was like, oh yeah, K9. I completely missed K9. Like, forgot he was there at all.
I liked Romana in this, actually. I'm not sure. I think they were talking to each other in this one. I think it was fine. Maybe not on the beach. I'm not sure if you looked at her on the beach. But in the studio stuff, I think they were getting on all right. Well, they were quite separate, actually, a lot of the time.
They were looking at each other on the beach because I remember thinking, I wonder if they are, and they were. No. It all seemed fine to me, but I don't know. I mean, to me, watching, and someone can tell us otherwise, I thought they seem fine. Because she goes up to him and takes the paper off him or whatever it is. It's like, that's one first thing she does, isn't it? Like, I thought you said we were in. He's like, this is what we're, you know.
Oh, when we were talking about them, the other episode, someone got in touch, I can't remember who it was saying that they don't record together now because Tom Baker's wife doesn't want them.
Ah, it's not Tom Baker.
Meeting up. It's Tom Baker's wife isn't keen. Yeah.
Right.
Apparently.
There we go. There we are.
And, okay, well, the Doctor then, he goes old at the end of episode 2.
He looks like it's really good makeup. He goes 500 years old.
And he stays old for most of the story. And I think Tom Baker was a bit annoyed at that as well. He didn't want to be seen as the old person. He wanted to be out of it straight away, and then this new producer and script editor was like, no, that's what happens every time. Let's make the audience think that you're going to stay old for a bit longer. And he looks very miserable. He looks pissed off that he's old a lot of the time.
Yeah, he does. He is not happy about that.
Yeah, he's not.
In fact, because he was that miserable and quiet about things, I thought that like they were trying to show that he was dying.
But it works for the story, though.
Yeah, I think he needed to stay.
In episode 3, this is where we find out about Pangle, and he's like the only young one, and he's a child of the generator. And I did write here, like, if you sort of blink, you might miss an important bit of science and plot, because it does go, there is a lot crammed in. There's a lot of ideas crammed into this.
But equally, once it's said, like, I'm a child of a generator, once that's said, the science didn't matter to me, but like, once he said something like, do you not question why? And she's like, no. And then it cuts back to the doctor and things, and it cuts back to him. There's a lot of cutting back and forth. And I was hooked by then. I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And it was a really good ending.
And for like part 3, it didn't drag at all.
No, it didn't.
There was always something
was
new.
Really good.
Because then
Part
you had
1 for me dragged, and part 2 was okay, but it had enough to like keep. When the doctor came out old, I was like, oh, okay. There was enough to keep me going, but part 3 was really good. Part 3 was like what hooked me in.
And Romana gets saved by Fumasi, who's like actually friendly. They're quite cute.
Yeah. Also, I really like the costume. I thought you might have something to say about it, but I thought they looked quite good.
Oh, okay. They're not the most effective that we've ever had.
There's something that's only in the equivalent of about 10 minutes.
Yeah, they did a few
Not in a
close-ups.
lot.
No, they're not, which is probably a good thing. That's what saves them. Oh, I like in part 4 when he captures the baddies, and the way that he captures them is to put them in cotton wool to stop them. And then they're just sort of walking along in their suits, but they do look like they're in zip-up suits.
Yeah, you wonder what's happening because they take him up, and the first thing he does is attack a human. Is what you see, you know.
I thought it was effective with Brock, the lawyer guy, when he takes off his face and he's a Fumasi underneath. The way that they did that looked really good because, again, like you say, sometimes it doesn't always look good when stuff like that happens. The only thing with the Fumasi is when they talk, there's no mouth. It's nice when there's a real mouth. Otherwise, it is somebody in a costume, like I was going to say Barney the dinosaur then, but they're not really, but they are.
They kind of got away with it for me because when they initially talked, it was very like more like crickety. So I felt that they were communicating through their, like crickets communicate through their pincer, you know, and I felt like that's what, yeah, or through their hands. That's how they don't have mouths that they communicate through. And so I thought that's how they would communicate. It's only when he got the communicator that then he sounds like he talks like us and we can understand him.
They said something like he's like taking the language, or he's taken a recording on and he's done something to translate it.
Like, that red thing. But I could accept it because when he did talk initially, it was more like cricket, like that, rather than like, you know, it didn't sound like something that was trying to move its mouth. It sounded more like animal.
Yeah.
And
yeah. They're not too bad.
Like a bug. It sounded more like a bug trying to communicate than an animal or person, a lion.
I've also put, so Mena is losing balls all over the place and she's dying and stuff. And I don't know why I wrote this down.
Sorry. Can I just go back one sec? What is, and you might be about to say this, I could not work out the true relationship between Mena and the scientist.
Hardon. Mena and Hardon. That's what I
Hardon?
Hang on, I think he's called Hardon. I wrote down Hardon. Hang on.
You're joking. He's called Hardon.
Oh, Hardin, sorry. Hardin. I thought it was Hardon. I've wrote Mena and a heart and Hardon on my notes. I was going to say,
what you were about to say?
First couple of the 80s, Mena and Hardon.
Like, what was that about? I mean, she was a married woman, as far as it appears to us.
There's definitely a backstory because they said something earlier, like, we haven't been close for a while or something. Yeah. And then he was very protective.
He's bringing her through, like trying to regenerate her.
Yes, there's definitely. Yeah, I definitely saw that.
Yeah.
First couple of the 80s.
Oh,
Mena
for sure. Mena and Hardon. Hardin. He's Hardon now. And it's funnier that he's Hardon. He does have a hard-on for Mena.
What was I saying? Oh, yeah, well, going back to Mena, I put because she lies on the floor, and I don't know why I thought of this, but I was like, she's lying on the studio floor. It looks really dirty, and she has to put her face on the floor. And then, okay, I don't know if you remember this. Weren't you in something where you had to lie down in a puddle?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And they reminded me of that.
I was in Sweeney Todd outside, and my costume was like rug and carpet and like loads of material, And I just remember I'm dead, and I had to walk back out being dead. I had to lie down the floor because I just had my throat slit so hard. And I just remember the place I had to lie, and there was nowhere else because everyone was hiding it, was right where there was a puddle. And I just remember being like, big sigh and lying in this puddle, knowing that like I was just going to soak everything up with my costume. And it never dried. It took forever. It didn't dry for the evening. It was soaked. It was disgusting. And it was so heavy because it was just full of water. So I'd just been lying in the rain and in a puddle. The whole stage was fine apart from this one spot where it just slightly dipped, and that's where there was a puddle, and that's where I had to lie. So yeah,
yeah, it just reminded me of that when she lied down on the floor. I don't know why that came into my head. Yeah. So, okay, it wasn't so bad for Mena, but I just thought it just didn't look nice when she laid on the floor in the studio, that's all. And then the whole ending and everything is all this army. So Pangol thinks he's getting an army, but then it's the doctor that goes into the machine. And don't they actually use the randomizer? A bit at the time. It gets the randomizer.
Yeah. I found all that not very clear because you just see the doctor trying to go along. I mean, like, Romana misses it. She's talking away and she doesn't even notice he's gone.
No, the scientist is trying to do his thing, and then Pangol's trying to like clone all of him. But then the doctor goes into the machine, I think, and then it clones all of the doctor, but he's only a tachyon image, which is not a real image, so then they all fade away. And that's when Pangol goes mad, runs in with Mena, and the randomizer's on, so the doctor's left it on a setting. There's a lot of in and out of this machine, isn't there? Like, everybody's in and out doing something different. Every time someone goes in the machine, they press a different button and come out again. There's a lot of... And you don't really see inside the machine. It's just a random cubicle. So...
It felt like they put something on for Mena to be younger, because obviously the doctor's just done it for himself. And then he's gone in, and they tried to stop it, but it was too late, and that's why he's ended up a baby again.
Yeah. It sort of makes sense. It does, I'm sure. It feels like it's all been worked out quite thoroughly compared to maybe some stories where they're like, oh, we'll just do some kind of ending where it doesn't, it just blows up and it all just sorts itself out. I feel like if you looked into it more deeply, it does make sense. Like the doctor did this and the scientist was doing this. Yeah, it felt like
it followed a pattern.
Yeah.
I don't 100% know what that pattern was. Also, in a very Doctor Who way, it wrapped up very quickly. And within 5 minutes... The doctor is now young again. They've sorted out that army, and she is no longer dying, and she has a baby.
And she's got a lot of energy when she comes out. She meets the Formasi, and she's like, "What's your name again?" Oh, of course.
She's like, gives it to the doctor. He's crying away. Baby, that poor baby in that like Sally Lou outfit, whatever she's called.
Oh, poor baby in the wig.
Yeah.
And then it all wraps up. Baby in a wig. The doctor says goodbye, and they talk about the randomizer again for you especially. So, and then off they are. So you enjoyed this one?
I did, yeah. It took me a little bit to warm up, but I think once I got over the initial opening credits and sort of got into that and got over, which I sometimes just have to do, I just sort of have to like allow the science to wash over me and just try and focus on following people and what's happening. But I did really enjoy it.
Well, it's definitely a nice change in tone because we were getting so fed up with that silly doctor. He definitely really was not silly in this. I love this season, the way it goes. So I hope you enjoy it as well. And okay, so next time look out for his different costume.
I will. I'll pay attention this time.
Well, it just leaves me to tell you the next story. It's a 4-parter, and it's called Meglos.
Meglos. Okay, I'm going to presume that's a planet.
Okay. Yeah, there's not really much to go on that.
Yeah, I'm just going to presume it's a planet.
Now we've made a start. Let's carry on. It's good to be back. And we will see you all next time for Meglos. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 2WatchWho, and you can support us at buymeacoffee.com/2watchwho. Thanks for everyone that has signed up. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
2 Watch Who.